Welcome to Well-Defined MMA, people. Hope you're well. Thanks for tuning in. Big up to the new subscribers. You know who you are. On this video, we're going to be breaking down Colby Covington's trash talk. So Colby Covington, he doesn't care if you don't like what he says. It's all for reaction, it's all for an act, it's all to get his Twitter followers up. It's all to get people watching him on social media. It's to help push the brand of MMA, whether it's the wrong way or not. It's still making UFC, more people tune in to watch UFC. Colby Covington's trash talk was putting everyone on the UFC 225 card. It was making all them known as well. It was making people watch, more people watch the Yoel Romero Robert Whittaker fight, the rematch. And I'm sure the people who were tuning in to watch Colby Covington, straight after, they watched a fight that they loved. So it's all it's all a method, people. I mean, Dana White, he doesn't care what Colby Covington says, because Colby is raising the brand of MMA by all the noise that he is making. All these followers that Colby Covington has are all by the noise. And most people will say, most MMA fans will say that Colby Covington has had an easy run to the welterweight title. Rafael dos Anjos wasn't in any hard fights for himself. He didn't find himself in any wars before Colby Covington. Rafael dos Anjos also has avoided a lot of the killers in the welterweight division. I don't agree with what Colby Covington says in his trash talking. A lot of what he says is out of order, but unfortunately it's effective. So you can love it or you can hate it. And I don't blame the hardcore fans for being annoyed at the fact Colby Covington is where he is in the welterweight division. I don't blame any UFC fighter who puts in solid work in the cage, fighting everybody in their division to get to where they want to. I don't blame them for being mad at Colby Covington. If Darren Till hasn't shown me that he's mad at Colby Covington, but if Darren Till was mad at Colby Covington, I wouldn't blame him, because he is taking the opposite approach in the welterweight division. Darren Till wants to fight everybody in the division without talking. Darren Till does all his talking in the cage, and it wouldn't surprise me if in Darren Till's next fight, he fought someone in the bottom half of the top 10 in the welterweight division. So like a Jorge Masvidal, you know, even a Damian Maia. Anyone in that bottom half of the top 10, you know. If Darren Till does fight Jorge Masvidal in his next fight, he will have my utmost respect. He already does, to be fair. Mike Perry, a welterweight UFC fighter, for those that don't know. Mike Perry used the fact about 2 months ago that Colby Covington had less followers than him on Twitter. But if you look now, Colby Covington has 5,000 or 6,000 more followers than Mike Perry now. And before, 2 months ago, it was the other way around. Colby Covington will say almost anything and try to justify it after. Colby Covington's explanation for calling Brazil a dump, saying they're all filthy animals, straight after his fight with Damian Maia, when that fight was in Brazil. Damian Maia is a Brazilian. His explanation was that people in the crowd were saying that Colby Covington was going to die when he was on his way walking to the cage to fight Damian Maia. And Damian Maia was Colby Covington's previous fight before Rafael dos Anjos, if you didn't know, people. But like I've already said, I certainly don't agree with what Colby Covington says. And the president of the UFC, Dana White, he probably doesn't either. In fact, I'm sure he doesn't agree with what Colby Covington says. But it isn't justified racism. It is all an act, people. Do you think that Colby Covington will be association with MMA fighters like Yoel Romero and Jorge Masvidal if he was a racist? Most definitely not. So right now, Colby Covington is probably the only full-time trash talker there is in the UFC right now, and Bellator, in the whole of mixed martial arts world. All these pro MMA fighters, there isn't another trash talker at the minute out there that's a full-time trash talker, such as Colby Covington. Conor McGregor is out the game, you know. All the big stars are out. George St. Pierre, Ronda Rousey. I know they are not trash talkers, but they are the stars that are not currently fighting at the moment. John Jones. All these stars aren't. So if you can tell me in the comments if there is another full-time trash talker, then please tell me, because Colby Covington is making waves at the minute. Colby Covington has enemies everywhere. And this is what he does, and he says he has no emotion. I do believe that Colby Covington has emotion, because when Joe Rogan said the things about Colby Covington, I'm not too sure what he said, I can't remember, but that got to Colby Covington. The fact that a presenter is downgrading Colby Covington, I'm not sure whether it was his fighting, his trash talk, but that was when Colby Covington said he was going to slap Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan isn't a fighter, people. He's done a few videos where he's kicking the pads, and he does kick very hard, but he's not a fighter, you know. And a lot of people, like myself, believe that Colby Covington has avoided a lot of the hard fights in the division. But now he has a hard fight, doesn't he? He's going to be fighting Tyron Woodley next, the welterweight champion, who has defended his throne 4 times. Regardless of whether they were boring fights, great fights, it doesn't matter. He's still beating guys that have been put in front of him that have been in the top 5 of the welterweight division. So if Colby's avoided a lot of the hard fights in the division, well, he's about to have one now. And he's been calling for Tyron Woodley. Anyway, people, most definitely, I think Colby needs to focus on his sparring sessions with Jorge Masvidal leading up to this fight against Tyron Woodley. I think he definitely needs to work on his striking, because Tyron Woodley has great takedown defense, so he's not going to be able to do that for 5 rounds against Tyron Woodley. And this is why I said that if Colby Covington fought that same fight he did against Rafael dos Anjos against Tyron Woodley, then I do think that, you know, Tyron Woodley does win this fight within 3 rounds. So most certainly Colby Covington needs to work on his striking abilities, and he needs to make sure he doesn't get hit with that big right hand of Tyron Woodley's. But I do think Colby Covington is going to come in a different fighter against Tyron Woodley, because he has to, otherwise he's going to lose, in my opinion, within 3 rounds. All I know is Colby's trash talk will not win in this fight against Tyron Woodley. What Colby Covington is effectively raising his bank account, that's been his aim with the trash talk. But for this fight against Tyron Woodley, he should put the trash talk aside and focus on the training. Or maybe some of you want Colby's focus to continue being on his trash talk, so Tyron Woodley completely embarrasses him. I don't know, what's your thoughts? Drop it in the comments. Thanks for checking in, and I'm out.